Good afternoon. Welcome everyone to Cred Talk number 14 with Arshay Cooper. Arshay is one of Chicago's very own, and we are excited to have him here with us today. His life growing up parallels a lot of the lives of us on the webinar today. So we want to welcome friends, family, Cred participants, Cred staff, everybody in the Cred family. Thank you so much for coming out today. As we get ready to share with Arshay and for him to share with us, we want to show you a little something. So Sherry, if you don't mind, I got something for everybody to check out. Go ahead and cue us up, Sherry. We're missing the sound. Can we restart?
You can't hear the sound?
No sound.
Let me try it again. Hold on, guys.
In the late 90s, the west side of Chicago was not a good place to grow up.
It was like a war zone. Some people ask what college you're gonna go to when you grow up. In our neighborhood, the big question was what gang you're gonna join.
A kid got shot in front of Mally, killed him dead right on the curb. It kind of makes you lose hope for your community. How do you break out of that? But a chance encounter changed everything.
I walk inside the lunchroom and I see this boat.
I didn't even know what rowing was.
We don't even swim.
You gonna take some West Side kids over to the lake? Nah, that's not gonna work. It brought guys from different neighborhoods, from rival gangs, together in one boat. When it's calm and you out there, it take your mind away from any problems that you have. It brightened my life.
There was something about the water that gave us peace, and we all needed that.
Now, 20 years later, they're back on the water.
What are we training for?
Chicago Sprints.
We're trying to rewrite history here. Training starts today, Arshay. Malcolm's doing this to show his son another way. Preston's going back in time to undo his mistakes. Alvin's racing to celebrate the fact he's still alive, that he's still here.
Now you get an opportunity to inspire another generation. What are you going to do with it?
We're on the mission now.
It's going to be a remarkable moment when they come together and get to that starting line again.
Brothers encouraging brothers. That needs to spread like wildfire through our communities.
What he's doing is a beautiful thing.
When that flag comes down, there's only one truth, that they are still here.
Manly.
Wow. I still get chills every time I see that trailer, and I'm just moved by the emotion of the movie, the excitement of the movie. But I want to introduce the son, present to others, none other than Arshay Cooper, author, producer, director, chef extraordinaire, motivator, a trainer. He is doing it all, and I just want to thank Arshay for being with us today. Thank you, Arshay.
Thanks, Craig. It's good to see you. It's still good to see that you're doing the good work 20 plus years later. And thank you for being that leader in my life when I was in high school. So I'm excited for Chicago Cred and Ernie and everyone for having me today.
Thank you so much, brother. Arshay, you know what? I 20 years ago, I was one of the staff members at Manly, and now 20 years later to be on this Zoom with you, I'm excited to be the student, because you're the teacher, brother. I want you to bring it to us, and I want you to tell your story, but I want to pose this question to you. And I heard this from the mayor of Stockton, California, Mayor Michael Tubbs, Jr. He said he upset the setup. He upset the setup. And I want you to talk a little bit about the 1990s in Chicago on the West Side. What was the setup? What were you up against when it came to just growing up here in the city of Chicago?
I mean, a lot, you know what I mean? I couldn't even find a playground to play basketball, you know what I mean? And we would take milk crates and put it up on the tree, right? Couldn't find a playground to play. So I dragged the mattress outside in the alley and jumped on that for entertainment, right? And me and my friends just hung out on the corner. It was hard, man. Life was hard. My mother was a drug addict, right? And I didn't understand why. I've never said the word dad a day in my life. I failed the 8th grade. Matter of fact, I missed 60 days of my 8th grade year. And I had a teacher tell me that I wasn't gonna make it to C18. And my original thought was, you know what, like a teacher's always right. My brother was in gangs, and it was hard. It was rough. And, I tried to be tough. I got chased, I got bullied. I wore the same clothes every day. And that's the life I accepted. But I remember being in the gym room, sitting in the classroom one day and going to an entrepreneurship class. And I was 16 years old. And I remember Ken, who founded our team, he held up some cash and he said, "Who wants this?" And everyone was screaming, "I want it, I want it." He was like, "Come on, who wants it?" And everyone's screaming, they want it. And I started screaming, "I want it." And I knew if I can just get this money, that I wasn't gonna buy ice cream or a video game or a t-shirt, but I was gonna just give it to my grandmother so we can eat. And so I'm screaming, "I want it, I want it." And he looks at me and I was like, "Oh my God, it's mine." And then some kid ran up and grabbed the money and sat in his seat. And what he said completely changed my mindset as a high school kid. He said, if you want something, you can't just talk about it. You can't just tell your friends about it or scream about it or yell about it. In these days, you just can't post about it. But if you want it, you have to get up and go get it, because if you don't, someone else will take what's yours. If it's that high school spot, if it's that college spot, whatever it is. And I knew that that I was smart. Even though people said I was dumb, I knew I was talented. Even when people said I wasn't, even if I got cut from trying out for a team, I just knew inside my heart of hearts that I was that strong. And so once I heard that, I was like, I'm gonna just say yes to whatever's happening in the school. So I don't know if you remember, Yamoja came, well, Lila left, and they said, all right, we're gonna do a college trip to the South. All you gotta do is write this essay and you'll go. And I was like, well, I'm gonna say yes. I'm gonna write the essay. Hey, there's this internship. All right, yes, I'm gonna do that. So I started saying yes to everything that was offered. And then that's when I started learning and started saying that, you know what? I'm powerful, I'm strong, I can do whatever I want. I can write an essay, I can kill it. I'm a writer, you know what I mean? And I'm athletic, I can outrun anyone. I just needed confidence. And that's when I started just disrupting the system.
That's what's up. That's what's up. And I hear the passion every time I talk to you, but your faith, that you believe that anything is possible, but you don't just believe, you put some work on it. You put some effort behind it. And I've seen that. And that's all I would see that in you as a teenager, running around the school, connecting with everybody, taking care of business. And that's powerful, brother. So take us back. Take us back to that moment that you decided to do something different, that basketball was king on the West Side. It was all about basketball. The Red West, sorry, Southsiders, the Red West once upon a time had a whole bunch of future NBA players. And any given week at Manly High School, you would have a Kevin Garnett, Quentin Richardson, Luther Head was at Manly. So basketball was king, but one day something different happened at Manly. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I walked in the lunchroom and I remember walking in, I see this huge white boat. I'm like, wow, like what is that? I've never seen a boat before. And I'm staring at it. Like I stopped and just stared. And this little white lady, Jessica, tapped my shoulders and said, would you like to be a part of the crew team? I'm like, crew, like, you're taught, when in Chicago, when someone says join their crew, you run as fast as you can the other way. I'm confused, like crew. And she said, let me show you what it is. So I walked towards the boat, and behind the boat was the TV monitor, and they were showing the Olympic Games. And I didn't see anyone that looked like me. And I said, no. And I remember just walking away. And I sat next to my boy Preston, and I was like, dude, they trying to get us to row in some shell. We don't even swim. You know what I mean? And we talked about white people's sport. We say, white people's sport is just something you can't afford. It's like you climbing a mountain, or you on top of a horse, or you in the middle of the ocean. It's like, we don't do that. And that was my thought process. And I was actually upset that they tried to get us to do it. But I remember no one signed up. The next day, I show up, the boat is still there, and everyone is signing up. And it says, if you sign up, you get free pizza. So everyone's a sucker for pizza. And so we walk up into the gym room after school, and all these kids are sitting on the floor. I know these kids. I grew up with these kids. These kids are sons of drug addicts, sons of prostitutes, sons of drug dealers. And we all had it hard. We had it the same. And although we didn't communicate, we knew, usually when someone talks about the great sports like basketball and football, you talk about the NBA, being able to take care of your family, with the money you would get for, they talked about the glory, the crowds, the cheerleaders. And when the sport of rowing was introduced, it was more about, this is a college sport. The goal is to get you in college, that there are no cheerleaders, that you will travel. There's only one race in your city, but in the sport of rowing, every other race is outside of your city. You learn how to swim, you overcome that fear of swimming. And I think it was our coach, Victor, who said, every time you conquer a fear, life get a lot less scary. And it was everything that was missing in my life. And, and I knew in my head, like, I don't have a dad, so I need a coach. My brother's in gangs. I don't want to do that. So I need a brotherhood. There's no food at home. So if there's an after school program, I know they're always serving something, or church is serving something. So the things that were mentioned was the things that were missing. So I remember jumping on that rowing machine and just pulling away my pain, and just pulling and yanking that machine. And from there, I became the captain of the rowing team.
Yeah. And you touched on it earlier about some of the trauma you experienced growing up. And it wasn't just one occasion. It wasn't a couple of things, but it was complex trauma. There was a lot of things going on that impacted you and your classmates, our community, because I lived in a community. And so I saw a lot of things that you guys saw. And talk about that trauma. And you said the water gave you peace. Talk about that piece and what it was like, again, how you had to travel to school, the routes that you had to take, but when you got out on that water, that feeling.
Yeah, whenever there's a mass shooting in a suburban school, right away they send in trauma counselors, right? And I skipped over pools of blood. I heard gunshots when I slept. I walked past the shooting, right, as a 9-year-old kid. I've seen all this stuff happen, right? And I will say to myself that God exists everywhere, but here, but the West Side. Where people say what they say about God and how great he is, in my young mind, I was like, well, all those good things don't exist here. I'm not eating. There's no electricity in the apartment. There's no heat, right? And I couldn't believe in the American dream when I was living in those kind of conditions. And, and I said that we seen what some soldiers have seen in war, but at 13 and 14 years old. And there was no treatment. There was no seeing a social worker. I didn't talk to anyone about this. And I knew there was other kids that were experiencing the same thing, and they don't talk to anyone about it. And so I was angry all the time. I was a walking storm. And I remember when we went to the boathouse, and here's these guys from different neighborhoods. And we took some swim lessons, and we got on the boat, and it was terrifying. And they pushed us out in the open water. And when the first time for me seeing the downtown view of being downtown was when I was 15 years old. And that was my city. And I remember looking at the John Hancock building. It was like this beautiful sight, right? And we were scared. So for the first time we saw fear in each other, because we had to be tough every day just to survive. And when we saw that fear, it was like, okay, to get back to this dock safely, we have to pull for each other, right? We have to follow each other. And not only that, to get back safely, we have to shut up and listen. And when you do that in the sport, there's only one voice, and that's the coxswain, or that's the coach. And what they're saying is sit tall, breathe, follow the person in front of you, belong here, right? This is how we get to that finish line. You know, you have a right to be here. You're powerful. You're strong. Pull harder. You got this. Don't give up. Less breath. And to experience that kind of magical rhythm became meditative. And it was powerful, man. And it actually, because the way the water represents peace, as if you were in a shower or if it was a rainstorm or if you was near the ocean, we was downloading that peace and that serenity, and it calmed the storm in me every day for 2 hours. And then when you doing that kind of labor and that work and that suffering and that meditation, you know, we all get out of that boat. We don't want to smack anybody, you know, our backs hurt, you know what I mean? We don't want to fight. We don't want to argue, you know, we get on the bus and we're just sitting there and we're just talking about rigging boats, you know? And so, that helped us create our bond. And plus we shared that boathouse with 3 private schools, Santa Ignatius, Loyola, and another school. And you know, because we were the only ones, that helped us to stick close to each other. That isolation was like, we got to be around each other. We got to protect each other. We don't go in the locker room alone because we didn't trust anyone. We never interacted with people who didn't look like us. And so that helped us to build a strong bond.
Yeah, you guys had an amazing bond. Talk about your brothers from the team and some of the things that they had to overcome, and then you guys coming together to be there. You know, you share a story about how you would meet Alvin in the morning to go to school, walk to school together, and those types of things. Share a little bit about that, please.
Yeah. So, you know, again, the guys from different neighborhoods, but Alvin, when he joined the team, and I think me deciding to be close to Alvin was some conviction, because when Alvin joined the team, I didn't like him because he was fighting all the time. He was like beating people down, you know, and I was still out of the lunchroom, but he was, you know, I just didn't like it. And I remember telling the coach, I was like, this guy should not be on the team. Like, it's not good for our team. And he was like, you know, Alvin's strong. We could use Alvin, you know? And I remember a couple months passed, we in Philly, and Alvin had the joy of 100 ice cream trucks, as if you've seen these ice cream trucks. He was just smiling, and he was just like loving it. And he was just involved in everything, the college campus at Penn. And like, I've never seen him look like that. And I'm like, wow. So I remember sitting next to him on the bus, and I said, man, you look like you're having a good time. But why are you fighting? And he said to me, when me and my brother was walking down the street, these guys came to jump him. He told his brother to run, just run, go get dad. And he started fighting these guys. And when they ran off, another guy came and said, I saw what happened. You know, I wanted to help you, but I don't know you. And this will happen again. And if you want the help, you have to hang out with us. And he said, I had no choice. He chose safety, right? And he said that he had never had a fight because he wanted to fight. He had never had a fight because he chose to fight or he started in trouble. It was only because he had to help the other guys, because one day it may happen to him and he needs to help. And that's been every fight he had. And I said, you notice that you made a different choice. You've been practicing for 2 months here and you haven't been anywhere else. And he was like, I remember he said, you some kind of preacher, man? And he, you know, he's like, man, trouble just follow me. I said, trouble follows me too, but I can run fast as hell. You know what I mean? And I said, you know what? I'm where you live. I want to come to your house, and we walk to school together. I don't think he knew I was going to do it. I remember showing up and ringing his doorbell, walking up the stairs, and he was asleep. And I was like, get up, it's time to go to school. And then every day from our sophomore year to our senior year, I showed up at his house every morning, and we walked to school every day. Yeah. And that was the beginning of a good friendship, and he was the best man at my wedding.
Amen. Yeah, you guys looked good at that wedding too. and again, to see the bond, because it's not just Alvin, you shared about Alvin, but with all the brothers, the bond that you guys have, and you needed that bond, because tell me, what was it like to travel to Penn, to travel to some places where you were the only brothers in the room or on the water?
Yeah, I think that when you travel and you go through some loss together, loss of teammates, and also loss on the water, and when you're the only one, And when you're suffering and pulling and practicing, you think about like those soldiers who went in war, even many, many years ago when blacks and whites didn't, connect in this country, they would go to war and come back as like brothers, and they have this bond, even if they don't see each other every day, that lasts forever. And it was the same way for us. Like we was in unfamiliar territory all the time. And we just stuck around each other, and we cried together, we laughed together, and we, just been through a lot of new learnings together, and that was powerful. And I think that's why we had that bond that lasted forever, and we talked, right? We had coaches and mentors who wasn't just about fast boats. It wasn't just about winning. Like the philosophy was, being a great human first, right? Contribute to your communities, and then let's see if we can win. That was the philosophy. That's our house was built on that. And that was powerful. So in the summers, we all interned. We worked at like the SAFE Foundation, which was awesome. So we did that in the summers. And we took the entrepreneurship class together, and we talked about, hey, if you grow up, what you want to be, how would you do it? We had those conversations. And then those long van rides to Philly, to St. Louis, to when it was time to race, and someone's like, I lost my grandmother, and you're in that van ride, and you're just trying to comfort each other. 15 hours a day together was powerful, because and nothing, when you play just sports in your school, school is like all day, there's stuff happening, and then you run straight to the gym room, and then after that you go straight on the train, and then you go home. It's not really a lot of quality time. But in the sport, it was a lot of van rides. It was a lot of us being the only ones sitting at the regatta waiting for our race. It was a lot of being those entrepreneurship classes and having those icebreakers where we kind of got a chance to learn more about each other.
Yeah. And I don't want to steal any of this thunder from the movie. So we're not going to give everything away. And we want to tell everybody, when can they see the movie?
You can see it tomorrow on Xfinity if you have Comcast Xfinity. But after that, September 1st, it's going to be on the NBC app. So everyone can watch it on Apple TV, Fire Stick, all that kind of stuff. Don't get the bootleg version. Just. And
please don't get the bootleg version, because a part of the proceeds go to what, Arshay?
A Most Beautiful Thing Fund. And what that fund do is create more opportunity and access for rowing in Chicago and different communities like Detroit, and all the programs that are there goes towards academic support, paying for a social worker if they need a social worker there at the boathouse, some of the travel fees, and the introductions of meeting college coaches and stuff like that. And we do have 3 boathouses in Chicago. If you know any young people who wants to be a part of this great sport.
Well, we got a little bit more time left, but I want to get you to promise right now that once all this breaks, we can get you to come and train our guys, take us to the boathouse and get us on the water, or get us on the machine.
I want to put you guys on the water, man. I'm tired of seeing Ernie Duncan at all the NBA games playing basketball. I want to get him out in the water. He's tall, he got that rower look. So man, hopefully we can get him out in the water, and Monica and Sherry and everybody else and the young people.
Yep. And so let's take it from, because great experience. You learn so much. You learn to say yes, and you started to have access, and you started to have opportunities. Take us from graduation from Manly. What did it look like? What was your next move after graduating from Manly, and how did you get to this place of writing your memoir at such a young age, and a memoir that's really impacting the world and the nation, because you got the ruined world on fire because of your book, and I thank God for you.
Yeah, I think it was, I got accepted. So, Manly had a culinary program.
Yep.
And I wanted to be a chef so bad. And I was interning on Fridays at the Palmer House Hilton that Singleton got me connected with. And I got accepted to Le Cordon Bleu in Chicago. And I was like, I want to go to Le Cordon Bleu in England. That's my dream. And so I got accepted. And I remember about 2 months before school ended, they asked me to go speak at the Juvenile Center. And I was young, and I'm like, it was my first speech, I'm like, I'm scared, I'm nervous. And I remember closing my eyes and just started speaking to those young guys. And I was like, my mom was a drug addict. I didn't have a dad. And, you know, I was young, just hustling, carrying bags at the grocery store to make money, to eat food. And, you know, it was so hard. And I was like, but it's not like that anymore. And I remember just like, and then stopping. It was like, I don't know, like a minute. And as I was walking out, this guy said, Arshay, it's this kid. And I looked, and it was my friend Donald from 6th grade, who I went to Penn with. And the security guard was just like, I told y'all not to say anything. He kind of like treated him like he was an animal. And I remember afterwards, you know, maybe a week later, telling Ken about that. And I was like, man, there has to be more that I can do, you know, for young men like that. And I was like, there has to be something else. I just don't want to go to school without forgetting about others, you know? And he said, yeah, I think you should go to school. But then he told me about this place called City Year. And I learned about it, and I went up there and talked to somebody about it. And I just wanted to dedicate a year of my life to doing something positive, to giving back to the community that gave to me. And, you know, when you think about the hope you give, right? When you think about Harriet Tubman, you don't think about her career as a Union spy. You think about the freedom she represents. When you think about MLK, you don't say, oh, the educated preacher. You think about the hope he brought to the world. Or when you think about Gandhi, you don't say, oh, that's the attorney. You think about the peace that he brought to so many. When you represent something bigger than yourself, than being a rower or a chef, I believe true change happens. I want people to look at me and not say, oh, that's the rower. I want them to say, that dude, that kid, that's the hope for my community. And you know, it wasn't that poetic as a kid how I thought, but I just thought that it was powerful to do something in the same lines that someone did for my mother, and to give hope. And so I did that at City Year, and that's why I met Ernie for the first time. He was on the board at that time, and I was doing music, and I remember writing this rap and performing in front of Bill Clinton at the University of Chicago, and like that was a great year for me. And from there, I went to culinary school. And I'll tell you this, the most powerful thing that ever happened to me was when I came back from culinary school. I raised enough money to go to the Cordon Bleu in England, came back, and my friend said, you should apply for WWE Wrestling. They hiring a chef. And I was like, I'm not gonna get that. Let's just start it, you know? And I interned at Blackbird. And so I had a little experience from them too. And he said, you should just go for the job. And so I remember my friend driving me to Naperville. There was like 15 people there. And I was like, they all older. I'm not gonna get the job. They probably have like 15 years of experience. And so I go in for the interview, and it was a great conversation. And I went home not thinking I was gonna get the job, this dream job of working with all the wrestlers in World Wrestling Entertainment. 2 days later, I get a call from this guy named Bobby, and he said, you got the job. And I did something you should never do. I said, how did I get the job? He said, the sport you was in, but interning every Friday, working for free, when you could have helped your mother pay bills, working in the community in the summer, taking a year off to give to others. He said, because of what you did as a 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old kid is the reason why you have the job today. So when I tell young people what you do now as a 15, 16, 17-year-old kid, the way you treat the person sitting next to you, the things you do, what you're doing in the moment of COVID with your time, with your health, right, with your treasure, with your talent, it all matters. It all truly matters. And I believe that. And so it's a sense of urgency to always act now for me. Always. And I give myself away to that mission and to people who look like me and even those who don't, you know? And so I just learned these little lessons as a kid.
Brother Arshay, let me jump in right there, because how did you do it with the trauma you had to deal with? And you touched on what was it? What was the help that you got? How did you pull it all together to do these amazing things for others when there was so much pain in your life? How did you deal with that?
I think it was the village, but I think it was like my mom's change, right? Her going into that home and coming back. If you read the book, we had to get up and pray every single morning. I'm like, God, Mom, we got to pray. Like, who is this Jesus? You know, I think it was just like her hope was like, it's my mom, but I did not like her growing up because I was so hurt, you know, but when I seen her make this like 360 turn, I was like, wow, who's this person? And I listened to like all the guys, she would bring me to her groups where they would talk, and I would listen to these men tell these guys with no teeth and like just like tell their stories of how they changed and they got their kids back. And these were the simple steps that they took to get there, right? And then it was like, if that was part of the village, and it was like Ken, right, who not only allowed us to come into his home, but he came to our homes when we thought that, like, you know, like people don't want to come here. Like that was a part of it, right? It was you guys, it was you, it was Lila Left, right? It was Flanagan, it was all these different things, and not everyone I know grab it right away. And I wish I can explain how, and you know, but it was just tuning in to all the signs, you know, like even watching A Different World or Family Matters, right? Or Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Like I learned without a dad, you can have success. I learned that, you know, you could go to college, you know? And so it was just all these small things, but just people pushing me, you know? And I think like it was Ernie who said like natural born leader, and maybe that's it. But I seen people who didn't have that, but I was able to work with them and give myself to them. So it takes us really pouring ourselves out to these individuals so they can catch on to it. I just caught it, you know?
Amen. Amen. And so from WWE and the things they saw in you and saw what you gave to others through your pain, you still gave to others. And so WWE and did I hear something about UFC and
yes, I worked at
Rousey and all.
I started training. I became a personal chef for Warner Brothers. I started traveling, and then it wasn't until when I moved to New York for cooking, I started cooking. I was a cooking instructor for a school, just like my cooking instructor was at Singleton at a public school near the Marcy Projects. And these kids had questions every day of like, how do I get to where you at? Right? How do I get there? Like, I don't have a dad. My mom's not around. Like, what did you do? And I wanted to write the roadmap. Like, growing was my way, cooking was my way, and many other things. And so that's when I started writing about the sport. And then you know, I didn't know anything about writing. I locked myself in a hotel room for 7 days, and I started watching everybody YouTube workshops about writing a memoir. I mean, the whole week, like 8 hours a day, just watching workshops and taking notes. And you know, and then from there I started writing just my pain, my stories, and it was therapy for me to actually, like, those things that I talked about in the film or my mom talked about, the guys talked about, that stuff was never spoken of. And I started writing about it, and luckily the world received it, you know, and then I met Mary, and this film happened.
Yeah. So look, we got to dig a little bit deeper into that, because a number of our guys are writing their memoirs. We have an amazing writing program, Contextos. And so our guys are at the beginning stages of exploring their talents in writing. And we have different opportunities for them to share their stories. So what if one of our guys wants to go on that journey that you went? You just told us about a little bit, but who was it that helped you to get published? And how about editors and all those kind of things? And just meeting Mary and how Mary got a hold of your book, who is the director of your movie, how she got involved, that is not by accident, but again, blessings, and how, what is it when preparation meets opportunity?
Yeah, I always say opportunity are for those who need it and those who make themselves available to receive it. It don't fall in your lap. Sometimes you got to walk around the corner and get it. But you know, I think for me, like, that, you know, you have to just keep writing, right? I think I just wrote different stories. Everyone has a book in them. Every person has a book in them, and I just wrote all these stories, and then you know, your mind would tell you that you're not a writer, right? And that doubt would kick in. But, you know, you just have to keep writing, and there's videos online. And from there, what I did was, you know, there's a place called Wise Inc., which is for everyone. It's a great program called Wise Inc. You go there and they help you self-publish, or they call it partner publishing, meaning that they will find your editor, they will find you a person who will help you with your book cover, right? They will hook you up with Amazon, they will hook you up with Barnes and Nobles, And that's what I did, right? I just needed someone that was going to help me put my story on the pages correctly. And it was a fee, right? But it's worth it, you know, and they teach you all those different things. And from there, you know, my book went out to the world. I self-published it, you know what I mean? I didn't know what to do. So I just started sending one book to a school. It was an investment. And people were reading. It was like, oh, my students need to read this.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I want to buy a box of books, right? I was mailing books to LeBron James. I mailed the book to, I think, your office, like everybody, you know? And that's how the word got out, you know? And sometimes we think like, I got this money and I want, you know, for those 2 years, I didn't buy no shoes. I didn't buy anything new. I put all this in this book because I just believe in the story, right? I spent my own money to mail stuff out. You know what I mean? I didn't go out. I didn't like none of that stuff because I knew that one day it's going to come around. And eventually I met Mary, right? Because I was tweeting out to people, hey, listen to the story. And somehow someone gave the book to Mary, and Mary tweeted she liked the book, and I tweet back like, hey, let's work together. You know, sometimes you just have to ask. It's that simple. Like, let's do this. And this is the reason why you should do this. And then she connected with Grant Hill, and then Grant Hill connected with Wade and all these other folks. And we got like Ernie involved and you, and I was like, we need Craig in this talk. And got the guys together, and from there it started, right? And these are like the lessons I learned as a kid, you know, and in rowing, you learn when you go to the boathouse, leave it better than you found it, right? So from there, I'm like, hey, I want the world to be better because I'm here. So every person I talk to or encounter, if I go speak at a school, I have to leave it better than I found it, right? If I'm hanging out with my family, I got to leave them better than I found it. Like, again, don't do the work of 8 people, find 8 people to do the work, and you get there much faster. I'm always partnering up with people so we can get there much faster, right? Always sit tall, always believe in yourself, overcome those fears, all these go after it, right? Because if you don't, someone else will get that job at WWE wrestling. Just go. Even if you don't think you're gonna get it, just go, you know? So it's all these little lessons I learned as a kid that didn't really make sense, but if you just say, all right, I'm gonna do it, you know, and it goes from the next place, the next place, the next place, the next place, and you find yourself living your dreams.
Yeah. And Arshay, thank you so much. I mean, so many powerful nuggets in there. And you have brought people together from all walks of life with your book and now the movie, those that previewed it. I cried, I laughed, I cheered. It's that movie. And I want you to talk a little bit about, because you bring people together. And again, not to give too much away, but Chicago police, they're struggling right now. We're struggling with them. And it's often confrontational when it comes to the community and Chicago police. And talk to us about a little bit about what the police were in your life growing up, but then what you've tried to do to kind of bridge that gap.
Yeah, you know, it wasn't a relationship, you know, I always said there's 2 things that moms get a little nervous about is like our interaction in a different community and our interaction with the police officer, right? And I was that kid, like you said, I'd done everything by the books. I've never been suspended, never committed a crime. I went to school. We had to pledge allegiance to the flag every day, right? We had to pass the Constitution test. We had to recite the Declaration of Independence. I did all those things. I went to the baseball games, put my right hand on my chest, and still had my face pressed down a police car numerous of times, so many times. And the first time it happened was the cops pulled their hands down my pants and said, do you have drugs? Like, it was terrifying. And I said to myself, you know what? It happens because our community has a lot of gangs and people sell drugs. That's why it happened. And then I started interacting with people at the boathouse my senior year who don't look like me. I would go to their house and play video games, or would be at Kenny's house, and I would leave their place in the suburbs of the West Loop with my backpack, walking down the street, and the cop would still pull me over, check my bags, and I had to put my own books back in my bag, you know, rude. And I was like, and I remember being at the boathouse and asking this kid, Matt from Loyola, did this happen to you? Have this ever happened to you? Or have you ever went on a road trip to the regatta and you guys had to go in one at a time at the gas station because, you know, they thought maybe you guys were still as a group? They're like, no. And that's when I realized I was living in a different America. It was hard for me to go to the baseball and sing the same songs, right? Because they can sing it because they don't deal with any of this from someone who's considered American hero. So it was rough for me. But, you know, when we was filming this, everyone kept talking about the disconnect from different gangs. And I said, that's not just the biggest disconnect. You know, I see cops who worked in our community for years, and the only time I see them is when we're staring at each other, them behind their car window and me on the other side as I walk past and they drive by. And when we lose someone like Breonna Taylor, Tamir Rice, the first thing people will say is say their names on their shirts or when you post it. And I thought to myself, what if they just knew our names before, right? That maybe before they went to Breonna Taylor's house, they say, hey, that's Breonna's house. This is the kind of girl she is. That's Miss Rice's grandson. He's a good kid. Don't pull a gun out, right? And so it was very important for me to say, you know what, if I know they're not gonna hear me if I mail a book there or if I have a bullhorn yelling about peace, but maybe sports unites people. So I wanted to take them to the same water that changed us. And strictly, I said to them that they need to know our names. They need to know the people who live in that community. Anyone who lives on the west side of Chicago, anyone who works on the west side of Chicago for 15 years can tell you that we need to reinvest in these communities. We need more entrepreneurship programs. I want to give to more programs in the neighborhood. Anyone who worked there for 15 years will say, of course, Black Lives Matter. But how can a cop who worked there for 15 years can't say those things? It's because they don't know who we are. And I wanted them to know who we are. And I end with saying that they learned that Preston wears his hoodie and sag his pants, but he's a great entrepreneur because we practice every day. They learned that Malcolm called his son every 10 minutes, that someone cared about these young men on the West Side. They learned that my experience of what I just shared with you, right? And we had to give them that kind of education that they don't get, right? And so it was all about really, if you're gonna work in our community, you need to know our names, man. And they experienced the same things that we experienced in the water, that we were in that open water and someone was scared and we had to pull for each other. We had to experience that same meditation and they walked the mile in our shoes. And so when George Floyd died, I got calls and texts from them, right? And they said, we're talking to faith leaders today, Black faith leaders in the community. They felt like they should hold themselves accountable to me. And so I'm glad that not only they see our face and our kids' face and had a chance to really get to know us, but when they saw George Floyd's face, that they thought of our face.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much. Brother Arshay, I really appreciate this time with you, and it is an honor and a privilege. I just got two more questions before I turn it over to Ali.
Okay.
Number one, if you could go back, would you change anything?
From the film?
No, change. If you can go back and say, if I just would have done this one thing, if this would have happened, would you change anything?
No, man. Even every mistake I made was, that pain was preparation for my destiny. So I wouldn't change anything.
That's what's up. That's what's up. And then the final thing, what message or what points would you want to get across to the guys right now? So many golden nuggets you gave us today, but what is one more thing that you want them to take away from our time together? Yeah,
give what hurts, getting up in the morning, working every day, or forgiving those in your family who may have done wrong to you, even when it's, training for a race or anything that takes pain, right? It gets you the results that you need. When you give what hurts, you get the results that you want. And so I sacrificed a lot and to get to where I want to be. So when you give what hurts, you give the results that you want. Amen. Again, thank you, my brother. Look forward to seeing you when you get back to the Shy. And thank you. And I'm going to kick it over to Brother Ali, who's going to field some questions from the audience. Thank you, Ali. Thank you, Arshay.
Thank you. Arshay, how you doing, my brother?
Hey, how you doing, Ali?
Good. Man, we're going to go to one of our special top guys, Richard Blackman, one of our top life coaches. Got a question for you. Mr. Blackman.
He needs to unmute.
Unmute Mr. Blackman. Okay. until we get them on, I got one question for you.
Yeah.
Your relationship, often we talk to different people and we never really elaborate on the relationship with the father. How was your relationship with the father? Wait, I heard you say you never said the word dad. What was those circumstances like?
Yeah, it's I haven't met him. I met him the first time in the 4th grade. And him and my mom was friends, so they actually messed around once. And I remember like that was a good time. Like for like 2 weeks, we had this moment where he was in my life for 2 weeks, and then I remember he drank a lot of alcohol, and I remember like calling him. He never answered, and calling him, and I remember that number till today because I probably called this number 1,000 times and never heard back. I heard stories of people who saw him, and it hurts and it sucks, and so the relationship wasn't there, and my mom was tough for all of us, but like she knew, and folks at school knew that there had to be different Black men in my life to fill that role, and I got it through those people.
We got Black men yet? Okay, another question is, your coach, your rowing coach, you spoke about hearing that single voice. How did your relationship with your coach begin and grow so that you guys can become, winners?
Yeah, I think it was just number one, listening, right? And his relationship on the phone with my mother, right? That it wasn't just about me, right? It wasn't just like, hey, I'm gonna give to this kid and your family is your family, but he became a part of our family, right? And I think that helped my mom to build trust in this guy. And my brothers was like, oh, he's cool. Like, he's talking to all of us. And I think from there, they was able to say, hey, you and other guys can go hang out at his house. And it was, those moments outside of practice where he took us to our first fine dining restaurant and he had conversations on like, what keeps you up at night? What keeps you going? And those investments, and I talked about in my book, is that sometimes there's people who want to withdraw from these young people, right? Like, just like you can't go to the bank and get a withdrawal if you never made any deposits. And sometimes the only time we're talking to young people is when we're talking at them. Don't do that. Don't act like that. Why are you being like that? But we never took the time to share and made deposits in their lives. Like, hey, let me take you something. Someone came to me and said, hey, here's $40. I want you to read this book called The 4 Agreements as a high school kid. And I did that, and it was depositing in my life. So whenever I had a bad day, he wanted a withdrawal. He got that withdrawal because he made those deposits. And so it was those deposits that really worked.
That's great. Also, but we got a question that came about. How did you become the captain of the team? What was the process? Because obviously it was, how many guys, 4 or 5 guys on the team?
It was 21, but it was like 9 the whole time, but we only raced 4, so it would rotate. It was really just outworking everybody. Like, I wasn't more talented than everyone. I wasn't stronger or taller, but I outworked everybody. Like, I did the extra runs. I was the first to show up at times, and I was the last to leave, and I asked a lot of questions, and I showed up at people's house if they didn't show up at practice. So, that captain or that leadership position, it's not just about the position, right? It's the action you put in that makes you a leader, right? And I didn't want the position. I just wanted to be who I was and get people to just, follow me, and I didn't want to be a leader of followers, but a leader of leaders. Those who were leaders, how can I be a leader of leaders, not leader of followers? And I think that's how I got that role. I was like always, and I was recruiting, right? I told the coaches, you don't have to recruit. We know the students better than you do. I'll go out and get them. And I got Dwayne Banks and all these kids to be on the team because, that's what I did. And that's stuff that I learned from my stepdad when he would go out and recruit kids on the streets. He always said, when you have a plate full of mashed potatoes, scoop your mashed potatoes out for everybody, right? And they'll take care of you. And that's what I did.
So you did have a father figure in your life. You spoke about your stepdad just now.
Yeah, he was around when he was not locked up. And, you know, if you read the book, he was maybe a year he's home, a year he's not home. And he was selling a lot. Again, I respect his hustle, but it was hard because he was the guy who would tell us to go to the grocery stores and make money. He was the guy who said, hey, stand in the street with this basketball. If police come, just yell, hey, mama, right? I knew it wasn't right, but I respect his hustle and I learned from him, right? He was a father figure. I did learn how to hustle, right? And some of his entrepreneurial skills. I think Arnie talked about that a little bit. Like if Ken met that dude would have been one of the craziest traders out there because, you know, he took risk, right? He was a leader. He wanted to make money. And so, yeah, again, like that's a good point. Like he was in my life and there was many things I didn't like that caused trauma, but I did learn some things from him.
There's another question. Did your mother get help with her addiction? I heard you speak about that, some help that she did get. But what was the circumstances at home after the help? I feel like you spoke about some turmoil that you actually went through, but can you describe some of the things that helped you get through that turmoil, or if it was or wasn't?
Yeah, you know, when she came home, you know, in the recovery home she was in, they had to get up and pray every morning and read the Bible, and then they had to do some chores, and then they would work, and then they would do Bible study and stuff like that. It was a faith-based organization. So everything she learned there, she brought to the house. So every morning we had to get up and have devotion. We was reading Bibles. We had to sing the song. You know, even though we didn't want to do it, we got on our knees and we slept most of the time, but we had to spend 30 minutes with that worship music on doing it. And then she worked 2 jobs, you know, and you know, she built the house on faith, right? We started cooking. I remember the first time we sat around the table and had dinner together when she got home when I was like 14 and a half. And she was awesome. She took us to church, and it was awesome. I mean, and because of her faith, my brother changed, my uncles, my aunts, they all went to the same recovery home, Victory Outreach, that exists today. And that was a turnaround for our family.
You said that now, I mean, we talking about a kid whose mother was a drug addict and father was an alcoholic. And then you come out to write out this amazing memoir, right? And you become a captain of a road team and then a chef, that you start to travel the world and cook for some of the celebrities and bigger names here that we know today. And that journey that you went through, is so many different trials and tribulations that you went through. I'm sure your friends all didn't make that same adjustment. Is it some friends of yours that were on the team that actually succumbed to some of the difficulties in Chicago, in the urban area?
Yeah, I think first of all, like, there was friends who, they would watch shows like Scarface and said, I want that. And I was a kid who would watch Cosby Show and say, I want that, right? Mm-hmm. So that was established first as a young person. And that was kind of the way we felt, right? And I think in the rowing team, there were guys who were strong. It was Preston, it was Malcolm, who were great. Their situation was a little different. Remember, my mom came home and she changed everything around, but some of their moms didn't. And they still needed to eat, right? And it was like, I got to go out here and make money, you know? And there was opportunities to work for the summer, but when you have parents that, like, with no accountability, sometimes it's a little hard. And I also think that what's important for me is, like, when I look at these rowing teams, they have kids just rowing and they have like some tutoring, but some of these kids do need social, emotional support. And that's why I say, hey, there has to be a social worker if you want this framework, if you want this to work. And I think if we would have that person that we can talk to help us heal through certain traumas we went through, I don't think they would have went that way. You know what I mean? But I think that is different for different folks. But, you know, my mom always say that if we train you the way you should go, you'll never depart from it, right? And they came back, right? they made those mistakes, but they all came back to the same place, the same water, the same team that that they love and they found support with. And so sometimes we go astray, but it's very important that I keep calling those guys and I keep reaching out, and I see it as a responsibility.
See, what I hear you talking about is being accountable for your team even after that time period. So when we talk about leaderships, we have a lot of leaders in our group, and often sometimes they just don't know where they're leading their guys to and what's those actual steps in leading. And it seems like right now you're laying out some things that could be followed to say, man, if you're going to lead someone, you need to be checking on them. Where you're leading them to? Where's the end of the race? And I feel like you're really laying that out. So I really want to make sure that our guys get the title of the book so we know where we can get this book, and then also the movie so we can check out the documentary as well. And then actually maybe be able to kind of iron out some of those points that you make in leadership that these guys can actually follow suit and lead some of the guys that actually follow them.
No, man.
So, what's the name of the book again?
A Most Beautiful Thing.
A Most Beautiful Thing. Right. So we got to get on top of that. I said we got another question here. I know we say, what are some of the team sport lessons that you would use with your own child?
Yeah, wow, that's awesome. I love that. I think I look at my child as a leader, and I think the sport takes leaders and teach them how to follow, right? And I already looked at my little daughter as a leader, and I think when I can teach her how to follow, coaches or people on TV and watch, hey, this is what Alicia Keys do, or this is what I do, this is what your mother do, this is what Craig did in his life. If I can take those leaders, everyone come in as a leader and tough, like, if I can teach you how to follow some of the steps that this person made, the good and the bad, that you end up where that person ended up at. And so I think that's the lesson that I learned, a big lesson I learned from Rowan is sometimes we march on the beat of our own drum, right? And we got our own way, this is how things are supposed to go. This is the way I always did it, right? I'll do me, you know what I mean? And sometimes you see, people will debate LeBron and Michael Jordan or LeBron and Kobe all day long, right? And then when a young person say, you know what, I'm doing this, you be like, you know what, you do you do me. No, forget that. I'm going to debate you until it's time to do the right thing. You know what I mean? Like, I am my brother's keeper. You are your brother's keeper. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's important. Sometimes, we spend more time with these guys at school, at work, than we do with our families, man. And it's just important that we treat them as such, and again, it's a responsibility.
You said treat the guys like family. That's what treat the guys like family and lead by example. I just heard that.
Yeah.
Right. So, man, listen, before we leave, we want to let Craig get the last words, but we really thank you for being here today, my brother. And are you still in Chicago?
I'm not in Chicago, I'm in Brooklyn, but before COVID, I was in Chicago at least 5 times a year. I usually go for rowing stuff, and then I go in June to speak at a bunch of graduations just for some of my friends who are teachers, but I'm there a lot.
Okay.
But I miss home.
The reason I was asking is I was wondering, how can we expand the rowing? Because after this documentary, I'm imagining that this might be the next big thing, like the tennis was for Serena and Venus. When people start to see themselves doing something, this is something that we can actually, get involved in. Is that something that you're hoping that will happen in Chicago?
Yeah, absolutely, man. And that's why we're raising funds. And also, since the death of George Floyd, college coaches have waken up when it comes to diversifying their team, right? And they all reaching out to me now. Where are the young people? Do you have them? Where they at? And that's where I come in at, right? There's 3 bow houses that need more young people. Actually, it's just like, how do we get them? How do we get them? So that's going to take partnerships with people like you. That's going to take partnerships with schools, with Obama Foundation to figure out how we can get these kids to the boat house. The resources are there. The boats are there. They just need the young people. And I think like this is why this film is so perfect for this time. And, the scholarships are sitting there, and especially for young women. There is scholarships 9 out of every 10 girls because of Title IX, that it's just sitting there waiting for more women. Like, people can't even give out their scholarships for rowing.
Wow.
And so many opportunities right now. And so now is the time to start preaching this sport.
Okay. So once again, brother, listen, I'm so happy that you came through. I love the conversation. My big brother Craig, take us away, man. It say, did everyone know how to swim? That was the last question. Did everyone know?
No, we was terrified, man. I mean, people quit because, they didn't want to get through the swimming part. And I think the worst, I don't say swim test anymore, because that's scary. I kind of just say, we want to teach you water confidence. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Get used to the water. But yeah, it's, there's some reason, there's some systemic reasons why that is the way it is, but that's another story. But you will learn how to swim, and once you learn how to swim, going to the beach, forget about it. You find like this joy in just being near water like never before. So that's important.
Okay. All right, my brother Craig, take us away, man.
All right. Again, thank you everybody for being a part today. Narrated by Common, Dwayne Wade, Grant Hill, executive producers, directed by Mary Mazio, and starring the Manly Crew theme, Arshay Cooper, the captain. Arshay, thank you so much for being here today, being with us. You are an inspiration to me. I thank God for you. And let me say this, that I know that I need to work a little bit harder. You've inspired me that we've got to make sure that we do trauma-informed care, that we're looking out for young people. And again, thank God for you. I thank God that you're inspiring legislation through Congressman Danny Davis, that this world is going to be different because of you, your book, the guys, and what's going to go forward from here. So Arshay, thank you so much. God bless you, your wife, your beautiful daughter, and may God continue to bless you. Thank you, Arshay.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody.